Hey, this is a really interesting topic we've got here, and I've got a question for you if you're watching today. If you're in business, do you have a customer that no longer fits your business model? Maybe they're not paying you, maybe their demands are too great, maybe they're unreasonable, but it's just not working any longer. Sometimes, in business, we all have them, and hopefully not that often, but there are those times where we have to look at a customer and say, maybe it's time to part ways, and we need to consider if we should do that. So we've all been there. I know, I go through it at least once a year where I have to consider it. And so today, me and Brian, and we'll sit here and we'll talk about ways and strategies to help you consider if you should break up with a customer, and how to do that, how to make that change easier for both of you. But first, if you've not been on seen the reboot before, this is the reboot, and we're short on crew today, but we are the reboot crew, even though there's two of us today. And we're here to help you as a business owner make business decisions that you face every day, the challenges, the struggles, whether it be something like this, whether it be hiring, whether it be marketing, whether it be technology, security, so on and so forth. We are business owners here on the Reboot, and our job is to help you make better decisions. So, but first, I'm Jim Gast, and I'm from Splicing Consulting here in Cincinnati, and I've got my good friend here,
Brian Bracci from B&L PC Solutions on Long Island in New York.
Thanks a lot, Brian. I think everybody else today is like coming off vacation or just couldn't make the show today. But We're ready to roll here. So Brian, I got a question for you. Have you, in the recent future or even right now, had a customer that you just needed to consider letting go?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? And so let me ask you, and have you delayed that decision sometimes because you just weren't sure if you should do it or not? Or was it just like easy for you?
No, it's not easy because we tend to, we're pretty tight with our clients, and we develop a relationship, and when we consider ourselves partners, and it's tough to, you really have to find that line between, what's going to be productive for your business versus someone either taking advantage of you, your staff, and not following sometimes your guidance, and that's really for us that line is really when we're more at risk than they are. There's a problem there. I should not be taking more risk than the client. So that's kind of, for me, that's where it starts.
I've been in that boat many times. Like I said, it's like once a year where I have to look at it. And one of the things for me, I've always thought it's a two-way street, right? Am I hurting and harming them and not delivering great service to them? Okay. Or am I hurting and harming or not delivering the great service that I can deliver, right? And I also look at my other customers. I'm always saying, okay, is this customer, this one particular customer, are they hurting my other customers because they're so demanding? That's one of the reasons that I consider relationships. Are they too demanding? It's not even a profit conversation to me first.
No, I mean, that's also, so you should look at your numbers, right? And see, are they noisy? Are they costing you more money? And it may just be, you may have to raise your prices for certain customers, and that could balance itself out. But beyond that, it's funny you say what you said about the other customers, because we have some that maybe we don't have a contract with. They kind of fell under the radar, and they just have, let's say, email or hosted services or cloud services with us, and then 8 months, a year down the road, they call for service, and you're like, oh, let me pull up their contract. And you're like, oh, they don't even have a contract.
Right.
So it's like they've fallen under that radar and let it ride for a while. It's time to have that conversation and explain that, listen, and I have no problem presenting to somebody, here's our contract options, right? We'll give you some options there, but once you start, swaying away from that, okay, we're $225 an hour for anything you call for then. I mean, we can be extreme and present it that way because that's I can't give you the level of service that we're known to. Listen, that's based on our reviews and just our reputation in the industry is not going to be compromised because you don't want to spend money on a contract. You don't need that.
Yeah, yeah, and the risk is that, and it does. By the way, Brian and I and most of the Reboot crew, we're all technology companies, right? We all own technology companies. It doesn't matter if you're a CPA, if you're a lawyer, so on and so forth. Auto mechanic, it doesn't matter. This is a universal problem, right? And so if the customer doesn't fit that bill, you got to consider it. So, I wrote down a couple of reasons to consider it, and I'd like to just kind of say, they don't pay you, right? Isn't that like the first reason to consider letting them go?
Sure. Or they try to come up with their own payment terms.
Or paying nickel and dime customers, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mind a customer asking about a bill.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. Hey, can you tell me what this charge is for? You know what? And if they have a problem with it, handling it in a responsible, professional manner. Oh, I shouldn't have to pay for that, versus, no, let's talk about that. I'm not really sure I should have to handle that. I should pay for that. Versus, yeah, and somebody just asks every single month, right? That's one good reason. I'm sure you got a couple of reasons. You got a couple off the cuff.
Well, yeah, I mean it's just. I had someone this week question an invoice. They have a contract, and they and the premise of the email was, oh, I think you billed us by mistake. Your contract covers everything, and I'm like, well, here's what it covers, and here's what it doesn't cover. It doesn't cover those 17 hours we spent last month working on this, this application for you. That's not part of the. And he got it, and I was actually surprised. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a battle there. And he's like, no, I understood and I appreciate that. And I said, if you want an all-encompassing contract, we can do that. I don't advise that right now because you haven't really gone beyond the scope of the contract over the last year. It's just a conversation.
And that's good, right? And that's one where you don't have to think about it. I'm not worried about that guy. That's somebody that's going to make the cut, right? Yeah. Any business is a vendor, and vendors get fired, right? And so it's no different. A customer sometimes gets fired too. Now, another reason I wrote down, I thought it was a pretty interesting one. You can't meet their demands. Their needs are greater than what you have the capacity to give them, whether it's by choice, whether it's by, maybe you don't have the experience, maybe you don't have the willingness to go into a direction they want you to go.
Well, there could have been a change in their environment that what, we don't do Linux, and they just brought in something that is outside the scope of and that's okay.
Right. Or maybe if you're a CPA, maybe they want you to do their sales tax, and as a CPA, you don't manage sales tax, right? Mm-hmm. And so they need a more comprehensive solution. Another one, they're just rude. Right.
Well, that's a big one.
That's the worst. And you try to work around it. This is what happened to us. We had a customer that would just cuss all the time. And I don't mind. That's fine. You know what?
I don't go for that, Jim. You know that. You know me.
Yeah. Mr. Don't cuss, right? And so that's a tongue-in-cheek joke for everyone out there. But seriously, it's one thing to just cuss. It's another thing to throw explicatives at somebody. Yes. Yep. You effing this, right? This is still G-rated. It's still, I didn't say it, but that's unacceptable, right? And sometimes even saying it in conversation, the way they say it is unacceptable. Yep. And if you're not willing to quell that, to put that to rest, to not do that again, that's a culture thing, right? We can't have the people that work for us endure that when certain things that are outside the lines that we all draw as business owners, right? And every business is different. So, if that's fine by you, that's your business and that's okay. But I can't stand it.
They want to yell and scream and curse at me about, I can, to me, that's, I don't think it's the right way to handle a problem with your business, whether it be billing or a problem that you're experiencing. but not to staff. I mean, that's just there's a fine line there. And we know we're a service industry, right? No one's calling us to see how our day is going. No one's calling us to see if they can do anything better. No, they're calling us because there's a problem and there's a certain level of frustration that comes along with that. And we accept that. We know that. But 9 times out of 10, we tell our customers we're usually aware of the problem as they're calling, if not before. And we let them know, we got it. Let us call you right back in 5 minutes. And try to, but we don't get a lot of that. But I'm with you on that, though. That's a line that we will not.
And every business is a different line. Here's the other thing. Not everything is an emergency in any industry.
Correct.
My brakes are going out. That's not necessarily an emergency. They're out. They're going out. But when a customer comes to you and says, this needs to be taken care of right now. Oh, I have to put everybody else aside for something that isn't really truly an emergency. It's just perceived to them as an emergency, but they don't want to hear you and trust you. And that really is a trust issue, right? They've lost trust. They've lost faith, or they're just downright, I have to be first than anybody else. I pay, I have a contract. I pay regularly. I should be put above everybody else. Yes, there are those times, but there are also not those times. Mm-hmm. So when you have to shuffle everything around because everything's an emergency, that's another reason to seriously consider what should I do here.
Yeah, and again, sticking to your SLAs and letting your customers know if they're a new customer or a prospect, let them know the timing on certain levels of problems that they're having. And this will be a 4-hour response. This is a 30-minute response. Somebody will answer the phone. We'll log your ticket. Set the expectations from the beginning, and maybe revisit that at your QBRs or your annual meetings with your clients, and let them know. Listen, I know that you guys think that there's a lot of fires going on, and really they're in so many words, there's not.
Yeah. We have a perception issue, and if we can't get that straight now, all right. So let's talk about ways to let them go, right?
I mean,
I got to tell you, I'm like you. Our business is like you, and I can't imagine too many businesses that are dissimilar. We get really tight with them, just like you. The word you said was perfect, right? And to go to that person, that customer, and say, we got to do something different. That's hard to do.
It is. We have the process of offboarding, right? And it could be offboarding. Maybe they're not happy with us and they want to go with a different vendor. But we use it for getting rid of clients. And some advice would be to we bill ahead. So at the end of the month, you're getting billed for the next month of service, and that gets paid at the end of that current month. So don't put yourself in a position where you're firing a customer and it's going to take you a month to offboard them, but you're not getting. I don't want to say you're not getting paid for it, but you're not getting paid for it. So make sure that you're whole with your vendors and your services to the client. Then have a process in place. And if they need, sometimes, you know what, I had a client that needed 3 months, and I'm okay with that. As long as there's a definitive date of departure or offboarding, then that's fine. As long as the light is there and the communication's there, we're there in full capacity. So definitely have an offboarding process. Make sure you're getting your money, getting paid for it. And that's some of the things that we do.
To Jim, I'm going to call it Jimsplaining, right? Because we're with men. I'm calling it mansplaining, right? But to Jimsplain it, right? Know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it before it's time to do it. Mm-hmm. That's the real truth. Have a good process. I got to hear you on this one. I know exactly what you're going to say when I say this. So I'll be the CPA, the lawyer, the auto mechanic, whatever professional service person out there, right? Or even a manufacturer. And I'm going to say this, you're telling me that I should fire a customer. I'm going to say this to you. You know what? They owe us $13,000. If I fire them, I'll never get that money. What would you say to that person?
I would tend to agree with that logic.
Yeah, you let that get that far, right?
Right.
That's just the way it is. You're probably potentially never going to collect much of it anyway.
Right.
And as you continue down the road with them, you're just building up bigger bills.
Just getting bigger. Yeah.
It's just
Debt
getting
is
bigger.
larger. Yeah.
You gotta make a decision to cut your losses and then go address that legally, right? Do what you can, talk to them, but at the end, set up a payment plan. But you can't continue to go in the hole for a bad customer.
You can't, because they'll continue to take the advantage. And if you've identified that there is an issue, chances are that it's not the first go around. It's not, this guy was a pain today, I'm going to fire him. No, there's a culmination of events that have taken place. And take notes. Make sure you have it all documented the best you can, and have conversations about it. Because ultimately, listen, our goal is we want to mend the relationship. But there's certain things, and when it gets to this point where that it's irreparable, and you're beyond that. So that's really where this comes into play. And listen, we offboard, onboard, we have processes for it. Nothing's perfect. Nothing's going to be as smooth as you think it's going to be. But I think at the end of the day, having it documented, having a paper trail, or digital paper trail in this case, of events that have transpired. And again, it doesn't matter the reason, but the fact that you're faced with having to do it, just means you have to follow through, and don't get weak. And then, because you're going to be in that same position, it's only going to get worse if they've taken advantage of anything, on your end.
And one of the guys on the Reboot was having difficulty with a customer. And we have a weekly call as a group, and we were talking to one of the guys. He's having a problem with a customer, and so all of us agreed, if it's not worth your time and energy where you're at, but they're not a horrible customer, then raise their rates. One of two things will happen in that situation. One, it'll become worth your time. Okay.
Yep.
One, it'll become worth disrupting other customers, right? And be more valuable. If you've got a customer that's a 20% margin customer, and you've got everybody else that's at 30 to 40% margin, not every dollar is created equal, and that 20% customer is not at that level of those other customers. Maybe it's attrition, maybe it's just time is changing them, raise rates or whatever. Mm-hmm. But one of the strategies could be, hey, raise their rates, and they're going to take care of themselves. They're either going to accept the terms and they'll be okay, or they're going to say, that's just, that's out of our ballpark, and they'll fire themselves.
Right.
Another good strategy.
Absolutely. Look back, Jim, at some of our customers, maybe 2 to 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago, where we started pushing cybersecurity in a hard way, from dark web monitoring to our SOC solution, and just the whole cybersecurity stack that we put together, pushing those services out at our QBRs to our clients. I'm happy to say the majority of them, with our guidance and advice, took on the additional services. And I look back today at where we are. I mean, because there's so much activity from the pipeline to this more recent meat breach, this meat company, and I have clients that kind of reach out and said, "Oh, can I get? Do you offer this?" And I'm like, "You already got it, bud."
Yeah.
So it's like you feel good about that, because that we know what direction we're going. We know the trends in the industry, right, as best we can. But to have them, so now we look back at the ones that didn't buy in back then, and that we're still trying to push some services to. It's a lot easier now because they see the relevance.
Yeah.
It's only getting, it's only, and again, for us, it's not even about, we're not talking about a lot of money here. We're just talking about the protection and our reputation and being able to provide that level of service.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to fire somebody if they don't, but if they're happy with their semantic antivirus and they want nothing else on top of it, and then we have to look at the risks and see where we stand and where they stand. And maybe it is an opportunity to say, listen, I think you need to find another vendor that's going to support you, because it doesn't meet our minimum requirements here.
And if you're a CPA, Or, you know, and then lawyers are, by the way, lawyers are bound in certain situations through ethics as to whether they can fire customers or not. And they have a whole litany of processes they have to follow to do so. But if you're maybe in a less regulated industry, maybe like a CPA or something along the heck of an auto mechanic, you know, hey, we have an oil change plan. In order for us to do anything for your car, you have to be on our oil change plan. Right? It means you're going to get your oil change every 3 months or whatever that number is. And because of that, we'll give you a discount to do brake jobs or whatever else is wrong on your car. That's if you've got some old customers when you tried to put them on those plans, right? Or maybe if you're a CPA, you know, hey, we'll do your taxes, but we have to do your bookkeeping also, or we'll do your bookkeeping, but we'll do your, we'll throw in the taxes at the end of the year. If they're not willing to follow suit, you've got to ask yourself, there's going to be a risk somewhere, right? And what's at risk? So, you know, if they don't fit, either you say, this is the way it is, this is what we have to offer you, you know, and that's the only plan we have now, because it's your right as a business owner to have a plan that everyone has to follow. And if they don't want to follow it, they just fire you. Yep. Hopefully your plan's reasonable and most people decide they want to follow your plan. But you know what, man? Sometimes you just got to say bye-bye right away.
It's hard, but yeah.
Send them a letter, say, you know, I'm done, you know, a very professional letter, keep it on the up and up. Don't get emotional. One of the things when I coached, I always said to a parent, if you ever have a problem with a game, don't talk to me on game day, talk to me the next day.
Right.
Go home, calm down, you know. If you're a business owner and the customers just, I'm going to fire them. I'm done with them, right? Man, give yourself 24 hours.
Absolutely. Write that email. Don't send it. You know, write that script down for a phone call. Sit on it. Let it sit overnight, because I'm guilty of it too. I've sent out things that and I've gotten kickback. And it wasn't nothing crazy, but I've gotten kickback, kind of a rebuttal to my statement. And I said, you know what, this is what happens when I work a 14-hour day, and send an email out at 9 o'clock at night. I apologize.
Yeah. You know what? And good for you for following your sword, brother. Mm-hmm. You know, and just be a stand-up business person. That's all you can be. And if you're the customer that's getting fired, understand, you know, that it's just the way things work sometimes. Just like you find new vendors, you know, vendors have to find new customers occasionally. So, you know, it's never easy. Hopefully it doesn't happen a lot. I wish the world worked in such a way that, you know, it just never happened. But I guess if you think about it, it makes opportunity for everybody else, right? If you're changing vendors or changing customers, that just means that more businesses and you have more opportunities. So it's just a cycle. Okay. It's natural. It's just
along with that, we see things when we're prospecting, you know, clients, and we're having a conversation with them, going over some numbers, and you just get that vibe in the meeting. Like, this is before they're even a customer. Like, there's no way that this is going to work, you know? So it's like, those are good too. Those are like firing someone you never even hired, but it's still, you get that satisfaction of saying, you know what? See ya.
I had one last week where my team, I get my team invested in our opportunities, and I tell them about them. And I went back and I said, you know what? I decided to walk away from this opportunity, and they actually said, thank you.
Exactly.
You know, when everybody is giving you, you know, that you know, that sign that you're doing something right. There's one more thing I want to add, and we're going to end on this, Brian. Yep. I call it the telephone call cringe factor.
Okay.
You see the caller ID, you see the phone ring, you see the caller ID, and your team, doesn't matter what business it is, looks at the phone and they cringe. That's a bonus right there. That's a serious telltale sign that we need to have a conversation with the customer. Something isn't right. Something's not meshing right. You know, maybe not time to take the step, but definitely take a step down, discussing it and evaluating for yourself if this needs to happen. So, Brian, you know what? Hopefully this doesn't happen to any of our customers. Hopefully the world works great for all of us. But you know what? I think these are great strategies for people that are considering it.
Oh, I agree, 100%.
The thing is, don't be afraid. It just happens.
That's it. It's going to happen. It's just be as prepared as you can.
You got it. Well, listen, Brian, thanks for joining me today. You know, the rest of the Reboot crew, I think you guys might have been able to tune in or catch us later on. We'll catch everybody in the next 2 weeks. Remember, we are on every other week at 1:30 Eastern time, the Reboot here. So thanks a lot, Brian.
Jim, thank you.
Bye, everyone.